Welcome to my Unreal Engine 5 Pro game dev course. I hope you're as excited as I am to get this journey underway. A word of warning before we begin, though. This won't be like any other tutorial or class you've taken in the past. When it comes to learning, I have a sink or swim philosophy. I'm not going to insult you by taking shortcuts to make things easier. We're going to pretend we're making a project for a professional game studio from day one, so you can learn good habits from the jump instead of trying to learn them later. With that being said, though, I'm going to be here the entire time to hold your hand throughout the process. I'm completely self taught and have slogged through many tutorials that skip key steps or don't explain things thoroughly enough to the student. The tutorials and courses I used got me to my goal of a full-time job as a game developer eventually. But if there was a one-stop shop to teach me everything I needed to know in a clear, detailed manner, I would have reached my goal much faster. This course is designed to be exactly what I would have wanted when I started my game dev journey in January of 2020. So buckle up because this is the start of yours. So, how about we get right into it? The reason we're on this page is because Unreal is a very demanding program, and we need to make sure your PC can handle it before we get started. If you're on a Windows 10 or 11 PC that has some sort of a separate graphics card, you're probably going to be fine. With that being said, though, we still need to double check if we meet these requirements. So the first thing we need to do is look up our software version. So we'll type about your PC into here and then click into the dialog. So once we're here, we can see under the Windows specifications area that we have Windows 11 Home. So we're good to go here. So at this point, we can close this down and start investigating our hardware on our PC. So to do that, we're going to go into here and double check our processor. And to get to there, we need to open up Task Manager. So we just search Task Manager in that little dialog and then head over to the Performance tab on the left. Now we have our CPU. So we read the requirements and it says we need a quad core Intel or AMD 2.5 gigahertz or faster CPU. And as we can see here, I have an 8 core CPU and the speed is 3.8 gigahertz. So we're all set in the CPU department and we can move on to the next step. And of course, that next ever important step is to double check our memory or RAM, as it's also called. So here we can see we need 8 gigabits of RAM and we have 31.9. You can see the nominal number of 32 in the top right of this dialog. So we're all good here and we should be able to handle Unreal. So hopefully you can too. And now we need to check our GPU and make sure it's capable as well. Honestly, if you can see a GPU at all here, you're probably fine because what we're looking for is a DirectX 12 compatible GPU. And those were being released all the way back in 2012. So as long as your GPU isn't older than that, you should be fine. So as you can see, I have an RTX 3070, and now we're going to get into updating our graphics drivers. And unfortunately, I only have a PC available with an NVIDIA card, so I'm only going to be able to show how to update the NVIDIA drivers. But I will link a tutorial for how to update the AMD drivers as well. So, what we're going to do is open a new tab here and just Google update NVIDIA drivers. So once we have that typed out, we're going to see the result and we'll see NVIDIA driver downloads here, and that's what we're going to go to. So once we're here, it should autofill everything for us. And you can double check if that's correct back in Task Manager. So RTX 3070, and we want the game ready driver. And will then be brought to the page with the actual driver on it. And note that this version and release date is going to be different depending on when you're taking this class. But ideally, you just want the latest driver. So we'll press download, and then we'll be brought to another page where we need to press download again because once is never enough with this kind of thing. And then once we finally are able to click on this, it's going to take a few seconds, but it'll pop up a dialog to give NVIDIA various permissions and just sign your life away there and press accept. And once that permission dialog is done, we'll see our display driver download here, and then it will download. And I'll skip ahead here so you don't have to watch it download on my screen. So now we're all set with the download, and we're going to need to wait for this dialog to complete and follow the instructions. So we just want NVIDIA graphics driver. I honestly wouldn't mess around with the GeForce Experience thing. It just hasn't worked well for me in the past, and I've had a lot of issues with it. So we want to choose Express installation here. I've had issues in the past with advanced, and then now we're going to wait for this to install. And again, I'm just going to skip ahead. And just like that, our drivers are updated. So now we're all set on that end. And the last thing we need to do is check our storage on our PC. So Unreal takes up a ton of storage, especially once we get into source control. So I'd say about 200 gigabytes of storage is safe, but you should really have more than that if you're serious about game development. An external SSD will work, but it's better to have native storage on your PC. So to check that, we're going to pull up my computer in File Explorer. So you see right in here, we'll go over to local disk, and then we can go over to this PC and see what our disk storage situation is. So you can see for me, I have plenty of storage available. That Samsung T5 is an external SSD. So if you don't have enough storage, an external SSD is probably a workaround that you could use. But again, better to have it natively. So we can also go about the process of clearing some unnecessary programs off your computer to free up some space if need be. So I'm going to show that right now. I unfortunately cleared a whole bunch of stuff off my PC before I filmed this, but we'll see if we can find a program that I can still uninstall. So you search uninstall programs in the dialog at the bottom, and now we have this list, and we're going to go through. This is actually really clean. Not seeing much that I can uninstall here, but we will find something. And it turns out that Google Chrome is the unlucky winner here. So we'll select uninstall. We'll give it the permissions it needs to uninstall. And sometimes an uninstall survey like that will pop up and you can see that it's gone. And now we are ready to roll. Now, the next thing we need to do is get an email account set up for us to use for game development purposes. I know you probably have an email, but it's better to start fresh, I think. So, we're going to make an Outlook account because we're going to need a Microsoft account anyways later on. So, we just Google create Outlook account and then we click on the first result. And then we can go to this again, just clicking the first result. Then we get in here and just follow the create new account dialog. And I'm going to use Camp and Carl test just because it seems like a nice name for my test email. So once we get that typed out, we'll need to set our password, and I'll obviously skip ahead while I'm doing this. Then once we fill out our birthday and all that other good stuff, we're going to do our I'm not a robot test here. So just rotate the boot and then we're all set. And you can do what you will here, but I would probably like to stay signed in so I don't have to do it later. See a little bit of indecision here, but eventually we click yes and we're into our email account. Very nice animation there. All right, so now we have our email and we can get all this stuff out of the way. And congratulations, you made your Outlook account. So now we're going to make an account for a project management tool that pretty much every big software company uses called Jira. So to do that, we're going to go in here and just search create Jira account. And we'll go here to sign up for free. And we'll use the email we just created. I've got to double check here because I have a very bad memory apparently. And now we can type that email in to the dialog. And then we'll get our very special verification code that we'll hope goes through instantly. Thankfully, it did. So just copy that in and paste it into that same dialog. Then we'll enter our name and password. I'll skip past this. And once we're done with that, it'll give us a site name by default. That'll just be your email, probably, unless it's taken. And we can click go to Jira. And we can pretty much just click through all this initial setup stuff because thankfully you have me and I know how to set this up. So we'll go with Kanban here, which is the default option, and press next. And then as our workspace is getting ready here, I'll go into a bit of why Jira is important. So, when you work in the games industry, there are a lot of people working on the project you're working on. I know here it's just us, so we probably don't need to use actual project management software. But this goes into what I was saying earlier about building good habits from day one. This is why you're here and you're not in another course because I am not going to baby you. We are going to do this right and you're going to learn a lot. And I'm very excited and I hope you are as well. So, after that little ramble, hopefully this is done soon. Okay, so our board is open and now we can start setting up our board. So that is very exciting. And again, we can just get rid of this. Just say you're very familiar, so it'll leave you alone. And this starting board has pretty much everything we need. We can get rid of the premium trial and all that stuff. So as you can see, we start off with 3 statuses by default, and we're going to add one by pressing that little plus. And the status we'll be adding is called in review. And we're just going to use caps just for consistency's sake. And we're going to move that in the middle of in progress and done. Okay, so that's looking good. And this is our board. So tasks will start in the to do column by default. And then when we start working on them, they'll go to in progress, then in review when we're done working on them. And then they'll move over to done once the review went through. And again, just keep in mind when you're on an actual software team, other engineers will be reviewing your work, but we're going to review it ourselves, obviously, because it's just us. So now we're going to move over to our project settings and update a few things. So first, we're going to update the name to hide, seek, survive, because that's the game we're going to be making together. In terms of the key here, I tend to like it to just be 2 letters. So we'll just make it HS. Category, we don't need to worry about. And for default assignee, we're just going to put in the project leads. This way you don't have to assign everything to yourself. So then we press save. And yeah, those are the project settings. So next, we're going to start making some actual issues. And per usual, we can X out of all this setup stuff because I'm here to help you. And you can see we have a whole bunch of fields here that we need to edit for each issue. And we're going to add one called story point estimate. And as I struggle to find it here, I'll talk about what it is. So, in its simplest terms, a story point estimate is a number that estimates how difficult a task is going to be. Importantly, it doesn't correlate with a specific amount of time, like days or hours. It's intended to be exactly what its name is, which is an estimate. And it will follow the Fibonacci sequence of numbers. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. Just keep in mind that this is a very abstract concept of software development. So if you're completely lost right now, don't worry about it. And I promise it will make more sense when we start estimating out tasks. And now that we know what story points actually are, we're going to drag it into the context fields dialog here. And we can then save our changes. And we now need to add another issue type. So we're going to press the little plus there, add issue type, and we're going to add bugs because every software project, despite your best intentions, will have bugs. And we need to track them in our project management software. So we're going to again search for story point estimate and drag that in as well because bugs will receive estimates as well. Okay, so we've saved the changes there. And now we're going to navigate back to our board. So we're going to go back to project settings, back to project, and we're at our board. And now it is time to start making some tasks. So we'll do add view and then select backlog because that's what you should create the tasks in. And we'll go into there. And now we're just going to make a few tasks for the next few things we'll be covering in the course. So you always want to make tasks in the backlog and then move them onto the board once you've made them. Again, it doesn't matter because this is such a small scale project, but good habits to start. So the first task we're going to make is to create a GitHub account. So we type that in. Then we can press enter and we can make our next task, which is going to be to create an Epic Games account. Okay, enter again. And then now this task is going to be to link our GitHub and Epic Games account, which is what we're going to need to do to build Unreal Engine from source. So now that we have this all filled out, we're going to fill in some additional information about these three issues. So first, we'll do our create GitHub account one, and we'll fill in a little description. So this can pretty much be whatever you want, but the idea is that any engineer on your team should be able to pick up this task and know exactly what to do. So we're going to type in to install Unreal Engine. We're going to need a GitHub account. And I find that a simple bulleted list will work best for these descriptions. And I like to put in at the end here basically what we have to do to be done with this task. So here we basically just have we have to create a GitHub account to be done. Then we get into the labels here. And typically for projects, there'll be three basic labels. So that will be engineering, art, and design. But since we're just starting out, we don't have any labels yet. And we're going to need to type in engineering. But you'll see that it will be available to us once we type it in once throughout the entire project, which is pretty nice. So we click on that. And in terms of parent and story point estimate, we're going to worry about that later. So now we'll move on to our create Epic Games account task. And we're going to go in here and we're going to fill out a description again. So again, any engineer should be able to read this description and do the task. So we'll type in, we are going to need an Epic Games account to download Unreal Engine. And then we have to put in what we need to do to complete the task. And we'll just say this task will be considered complete when we've created an Epic Games account. So once that's all typed in, we press save, and then we can fill in our engineering label, and we don't need to worry about anything else for now. So just save. And then we're going to do the last one, which is a link GitHub to Epic Games account. So we'll go into the description. And I hope this isn't scaring you off yet. All the project management stuff. I promise we'll get into the engine relatively soon. But so for the description, we'll type in order to download Unreal Engine from source, we are going to need to link our GitHub account to our Epic Games account. So once we get that done and typed in, we need to say that this task will be considered done when we've linked the accounts. And then we're all set with the description for this task. And again, I know this seems a little unnecessary, but this is how you build good habits. So this is what we're going to do. And for labels, we'll put in engineering again. And that will bring us to our next step where we need to make a parent container to put these tasks within. So when you're making a software product, it's good to break things up into bigger milestones. So for us, we have these three tasks. They're obviously not big enough to be considered a big milestone. So we need to make an epic to put them under. So to do this, we need to click that little dialogue and then check epic. And then now we can create our first epic. So for this first one, what we're going to do is call it getting started because it's going to basically cover all the pre-setup we have to do before we actually start coding inside of the engine. And that's going to be a fair amount of work. Again, not trying to scare you guys off, but I think it's very important to build good habits. Just think of how far ahead of other people who are trying to get a job in game development you're going to be when you've learned all this stuff right from the beginning. So we type in get started and press enter, and we've created our first epic. So now we have our epic here, and we can go to all of these, and you can actually highlight a bunch of them at once. I just wanted to show you that it won't actually change the parent on all of them all at once. It's kind of annoying. You would think that would work, but it doesn't. So we select the parent and see how it only went on that first one. So we're going to have to do it individually for each one, which is kind of annoying, but not a big deal. So now we've filled in everything about each of these tasks other than the story point estimate. So we'll take care of that now. So, welcome to your first estimation meeting. So, on an actual software team, what will happen is whoever is in charge of the task will basically describe the task to the group of engineers who are at the meeting, and everyone will vote on how many story points they believe that should be assigned to this task. And because it's just us here, I'm just going to estimate them, and that's what we're going to go with. So now we'll quickly go through my thought process in estimating these. And typically, what I like to do if the task is going to be really, really, really easy, we'll give it a one. So that's what we're going to do for the create GitHub account one because it's literally just creating an account, not complicated at all. So we'll fill that in. And same thing for the Epic Games account. Just give it a one because this is just creating an account and it's a very trivial task. So next we have link GitHub to Epic Games account. And for this, it's a little bit more complicated. So it's not as trivial as the first two. So we're going to give it a 2. And we just press that little checkbox and we're all set. So, congratulations, you just finished your first estimation meeting. And now we can click and shift click and move all those up right into the board. All right, so our tasks are all in. Then we can click into our board and we're going to move over the first task, which will be to create the GitHub account. So now that's in progress, and let's get going with that. So, for everyone who doesn't know, GitHub is a repository site where various parties put their code repositories for us to download. So, we'll search create GitHub account and we'll click that first link, join GitHub. Now we'll follow the dialogue here. So we'll enter our Camp and Carl test email, and I'll skip past the password part. And now we're at the part where we need to enter our username. So we'll just use Camp and Carl test. But again, it doesn't really matter what you pick. And we'll decline emails just because I get enough spam as it is. Now we'll do the little robot puzzle. So turn the chair, press submit. Now we get our verification code. So go to our email, copy it in. Thankfully, it showed up instantly. Paste it in. Fill out this dialogue. It doesn't really matter what you say. Skip past this. And now we did it. So we are in GitHub and we are ready to roll. So the next step is going to be closing out this task. And this doesn't really have a need for review, but just to get you used to the process, we'll move it into review and then into done. And now that that's done, our next step is going to be to create an Epic Games account. So we'll move that into in progress and we'll get started by opening up a new tab. We can clean these up a little bit. Then we can open up a new tab, create Epic Games account, and we'll click that register link. And we'll fill in our email at Camp and Carl test. And obviously use your email that you made, not Camp and Carl test. We'll fill in the birthday. Then we'll fill out all this stuff and I'll skip past it. And now we want to check that we've agreed to the terms of service. We'll get our verification code there. Oh, and by the way, decline emails from Epic in that last screen, or else they'll send you a whole bunch of stuff. It's really annoying. So we'll copy and paste that in. And now we're all good. We made our Epic Games account. See all this. You don't really need to fill it in yet. So now we'll go move that task over. So go back to our board. Then slide that into review. Again, it doesn't need review, but just for the process. And that's done. So now we can start the process of linking our GitHub account to our Epic Games account, which is definitely a little bit more annoying than the past steps. So we'll move that into in progress and just do a quick Google. So link Epic Games account to GitHub. Go to that first page and we'll go to the connected accounts page. And hopefully you're still logged in to GitHub. It'll make this easier. But if not, no worries. So press connect and we'll agree to the terms. Read through this if you want. I'm not going to. Then we press I agree and we connect our account. I had a pop up issue, so we'll allow. And then we'll get this little pop up and we want to authorize Epic Games. If you're not already logged into GitHub, I think it'll make you log in there, but no big deal. So if you go to try to see the Epic Games repo, it won't work until we go to our email and accept this invite from the Epic team. So join and we'll join again. Don't ask for a GitHub Copilot seat. They're probably not going to give it to you. And there we go. So now we're in the Epic Games repository and we can even click into Unreal Engine. So we have access to this and we're ready for the next step when we need to download it. So yeah, we're in pretty good shape here. So now our next step is going to be to go back over to our board and move this task into review. And this one, we actually do have something to review. So we said this would be done if we can see the Epic repository. And we just showed that we can do that. So we're all set. And now that we're done with that, that concludes lesson one in my Pro Unreal Engine game development course. If you made it this far and you like what you see, please like and subscribe to the channel. It'll really help me out and let me know that you're interested in this and I should continue this series. Also, if you have any feedback, this is obviously the first class I've ever recorded, so any feedback is welcome and I'll definitely apply it moving forward. Just leave a comment and I'll get back to you soon. Also, thanks for dealing with listening to my voice. I was a little sick recording this, so if you hear any voice cracks, that would be why. And with all that being said, my name is Steve. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later.